We all know that English map makers of yesteryear placed the phrase, "Here be dragons," at the edges of their known world. I mean, it's common knowledge, isn't it? Or is it? For I was recently reading an article written by Erin C. Blake, a cartographer, who reported a list of all known historical maps upon which these words appear. There aren't any. Of course, she argued, it's not surprising that the English phrase cannot be found on maps from a time and place where Latin was the language of learning. So here is her list of all known historical maps where the phrase appears in Latin. The Lennox Globe, circa 1503-7, in the collection of the New York Public Library, which has Hic sunt dracones on the eastern coast of Asia. And that's it. In other words, there's just the one. According to Brewer's Dictionary of Phrase and Fable, the animal called a dragon is a winged crocodile with a serpent's tail, whence the words serpent and dragon are sometimes interchangeable. The word dragon was used by ecclesiastics of the Middle Ages as the symbol of sin in general and paganism in particular. The metaphor is derived from Revelations chapter 12, verse 9, where Satan is termed the Great Dragon. Dragons are something that the Chinese knew much more about than their European contemporaries. You only have to go around the southeast second ring road in Beijing to Longtan Park, and you'll see what I mean. Longtan Gongyuan, literally Dragon Pool, to give it its proper name, was built in 1952 and has a total area of 49 hectares. The park is a fusion of northern classical architecture and modern garden art, highlighting the Chinese dragon culture. OK, Longtan Park rarely features on must-see lists of Beijing's many tourist sites, probably because it's within a 1.5-kilometre flick of a dragon's tail from the eastern gate of the Temple of Heaven. But it's no less worth seeing for that. The park is relentlessly themed with dragons, with pavilions, bridges, gates, halls, islands, lake and trees, and almost anything that moves having some kind of a dragonian connection. According to the official blurb, there are as many as 100 carved dragons scattered around the park, though I have to admit to losing count after I'd passed the 60-plus mark. You cannot possibly miss the entrances, all featuring golden dragons prancing around and doing what dragons like to do best, i.e. look awesome, and sometimes cute, but rarely frightening. Lest you could possibly get lost in a place like this, there are maps liberally scattered around the park. It's obvious that the designers have thought long and hard about where they could possibly cram in extra dragons. You just have to look beneath your feet, and voila, out pops another one. Even the lampposts have a kind of dragon motif on them, while the dragon trees, which all look so beautiful in winter and early spring, are pleasing on the eye. These trees even manage to steal one's attention away from some of the beautiful structures behind them. In common with so many parks and open spaces in Beijing, it's normal to find people practicing their Tai Chi or shadow boxing and twirling ribbons or swords. For the more adventurous, there's even a climbing wall, though today it's been closed to the public. Something that is definitely not dragon-related is as equally unexpected as I turn a corner and am confronted by an old MiG fighter jet with a no-entrance sign in front of it. Children are encouraged to stand on the wings to have their photos taken, while others pose in front of it. You can see much better examples of this plane in the military museum, and perhaps this is why this sad-looking specimen ended up here, the only place left they could dump it, I wonder. With 40% of the park being given over to the Dragon Lake itself, it's of course impossible to miss. This patch of water has been expertly beautified to ensure charming vistas all the way around its banks. A beautifully curving pavilion with a dragon roof and pillars, called Longying House, is decorated with golden dragons and is the largest piece of wooden architecture in the park. Elsewhere, near a lotus pond in the southeast of the park, is a dragon-motifed wooden bridge, which has the appearance of having been put there simply because they couldn't think what else to do with the space. But I guess it's pretty all the same. There's also a double croquet pitch laid out where a number of seniors are expertly knocking their balls through the hoops. And again, in the Chinese tradition, the sounds of instruments being practiced waft throughout the park. Today, there's a man practicing his mandolin, and just along the track in yet another dragon-themed pavilion is a saxophone combo. Further on, the sound of bouncing balls emanates from a special ping-pong arena. Rockeries play a big role in Longtan Park, especially in the eastern sector, where seemingly haphazardly placed rocks connect different parts of the lake's bank. One of the prettiest bridges in Longtan is a moon bridge located at the western end of the lake. Moon bridges are highly arched pedestrian bridges which originated in China and were later introduced to Japan. They were originally designed to allow pedestrians to cross canals while allowing a passage of barges underneath. They had the further advantage of not using up too much space from the adjoining fields for the approaches. In formal garden design, a moon bridge was placed so that it was reflected in the still water below, and the arch with its reflection formed a circle symbolizing the moon. Unfortunately, together with the pretty is the comically trashy kitsch that the Chinese seem to love. Close to One Liutang Hall in the northeast section of the park is a dragon boat, for instance, used in the summer for pleasure rides on the lake. But it's quickly set off by the more elegant-looking dragons carved into the stone balustrades just a few paces away. Meanwhile, there's another pretty bridge, some 4 meters long, which connects two small islands in the middle of the lake. Dragons are literally everywhere in this park. Can one ever get a surfeit of them, I wonder? A touch of dragophobia, perhaps? Who knows? But as it's time to leave by a different exit, the last thing my eyes fall to rest upon is a pair of columns covered in, yes, you guessed it. But now it's time to wend my weary way home, where I can finally find the time to catch up with the latest episode in the Game of Thrones series that has become such a worldwide phenomenon, featuring, of course, dragons.